Hey, how are ya? I'm Anderson and this is Kill 10 Rats RPG. I got mail from a Kickstarter that I joined in on a while back, and the content of the package was the limited deluxe edition in a metal case of Twilight 2000, the 4th edition of the game. And it does have a solo component baked into it, which is why this piqued my interest. But this has also been one of my once that got away games over the years. So I've never played this, even though I was aware of it ever since I was in school, ever since the Cold War was still a thing. So I grew up in this setting, and it's always been on my radar. So I always wanted to add it to the collection, and the new edition was definitely a welcome opportunity to do just that. So as we've now gotten rid of the exterior packaging and have the thing right in front of us, I figure let's explore it together, have a quick look at the rules and at the contents, and just figure out what this thing is. So pretty hefty box, ammunition crate style. First we see a catalog including Forbidden Lands back there. What are you? Secret dossier. That looks like a scenario. I'll try and dig down to the rule books themselves. We got some maps, hex maps, front and back. Yeah, pretty nice quality overall. Same here again, front and back, I assume. Yes, city center, housing block. This looks more like a fortified settlement. This looks like the big map. Yes, indeed. This is Poland, I believe. And that should also have Sweden on the back, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, okay, so as far as I remember, the first settings on offer in this one are Poland and Sweden. This is quite a chunk of Poland, I would say. Krakow, Warsaw, Łódź. Why is it Łódź? The L with the thing through it is always like Brzęczyszczykiewicz. What else do we have? We have character sheet, maybe? Bunch of them on rather nice paper. Is quite nice to the touch. And some smaller engagement maps, the way it looks. Also front and back. Yes, also hex maps. Wow. Bunch of markers. Soldiers. Mines. Chemicals. Well, this sounds promising. And we have the referee's manual first, so give a quick look at the table of contents here. Oh, that is very nicely done up. That actually is a similar style of the One Ring preview that I got recently, that also has a similar overview. I found it very nicely designed, so happy to see it here again. World at War, so it's background information. There's the solo rules. Okay, so we have the solo rules in the referee's manual. That's good to know. Let's look at that in a minute. And let's first dig into the player's manual. Also got some specific dice and encounter cards. Probably just cards in general. Yeah, okay, so player's handbook. Player's manual, rather. What do we got? You're on your own now. What do you do? The setting, the campaign framework, player characters, skills and specialties, combat damage, weapons, vehicles and gear, travel. That's it. Nicely illustrated as well. So what is this actually? So this is kind of an alternate history, what if the Cold War had gone hot around the year 2000 kind of setting, where the aftermath of World War III is portrayed, and you are a survivor, part of generally one of the military forces involved in the engagements, like Swedish, NATO, American forces, Polish, locals. There's a bunch of different kinds of character backgrounds you can play. As they express it here, you might be a soldier from the now scattered US forces in Europe, but can also be a soldier of another nationality or even a civilian. So anything that kind of makes sense to be in that area is reflected, and the idea is to first of all survive and then potentially also rebuild. Looks like we're getting a bunch of class options here. The spook, so a spy kind of person, operator, yeah, okay, officer, mechanic, medic, gunner, the kid, local child somehow attached to the forces, civilian, grunt, and that seems to have been it. Moral code, coolness under fire, the big dream, dealing with radiation, encumbrance. Like, this is a very different kind of direction of game from, let's say, your archetypical, very narrative fantasy game that I'm used to playing. There's probably a lot more micromanagement involved of your character's stuff just because of the survival aspect, also making it part of the gameplay loop. In terms of gameplay, it seems like we're dealing with a variety of dice, the die type being tied to the level of skill you have in one of the 12 core skills in the game. Initiative seems to be resolved by some of these cards as well, so there are initiative cards and 10 of are dealt and you draw from those. Combat does have an aspect of that hex map to it that seems to be quite important. Also makes sense that it's a bit more tactical given the setting and everything, the background. It's probably also a lot more combat heavy, but I also do already see a social conflict and negotiating position component here, persuading a group, being persuaded, interrogation. So it's not all just bang boom bang. And then naturally a very detailed equipment section, as I would expect from a game like this that has just all kinds of weaponry, machinery, ordnance. Wow, that looks old as hell, but probably still works. Yeah, there is a ton. And we've got all sorts of US military vehicles, Soviet military vehicles, Swedish, and it looks like also some base building or base mechanics here. One day you might find a place safe enough to stay at temporarily or for a longer period. This section details how you can establish and develop a home base for your group. Yeah, okay, that is really rather nice. And of course, traveling rules overall to move about in the area of your choice. Got some foraging tables here, which already tickles my solo fancies. An electric guitar, an electric shaver, hair gel, head trimmer. Okay. But also an aspirin bottle, that's probably useful. And a yellowed copy of Twilight 2000 RPG First Edition. Alright, interesting. So this doesn't seem like the Free League system or Modiphius systems of choice that I've run into so far with the skill rank and the D6, D8, D10, D12 system, which also seems to convert into chance of success, push, roll, so there's all kinds of variables in here that have an impact. That seems to be very much its own thing, which I like. Now, how extensive is this solo section? I'm very curious about that. That was right at the end, I think. Conversion rules, solo rules. Okay, these rules should be considered guidelines for your solo game, so they're more like guidelines. Captain Barbosa co-authored this. You, the player, have total agency. We've provided a host of prompts, tables, and ideas to help form your progress through the hex crawl of your world. What you find may be random, how you tie it together as a narrative need to not be. Good. The Oracle. Okay, so the terminology is on point, at least if you have your Ironsworn in the back of your mind. Encounter type. Creating encounters. Context is everything. Yeah, okay. Derive what happens from the context. Managing combat. Set up combat using encounter distance roll. Encounter cards will typically set the enemy strength in relation to the number of PCs. Play the NPCs fairly. Okay, so we are handling both sides here. We're kind of semi-DMing in this solo setup. Fair enough. We recommend that you use simplified rules for managing NPCs in combat to avoid excessive bookkeeping. That sounds nice. Procedure. Gameplay proceeds shift by shift using normal travel, encounter, and combat rules to play. Roll for weather change, assign and resolve tasks for each PC, draw an encounter card. If an encounter is triggered, roll recon to see if the PCs can avoid it or not. If needed, resolve the encounter using rules for social conflict or combat. Use the oracle below as needed to adjudicate situations that the rules do not clearly resolve. Proceed to the next shift. Okay. So it's almost looking like a turn-based tactical component to the overland map hex crawl, and a more rigid sequence of turn and how to resolve travel and how to resolve encounters and things like that. So there's a good amount of structure to navigate by. That's definitely helpful. And here it seems that we resolve the encounter with these cards: clubs, diamonds, hearts, spades. Okay. A bit of a Deadlands vibe. We're working with the basic yes or no questions. Helpful or hazardous. NPC motivations also have a table. Settlements and settlement leaders have some solo rules to them. There's a lot of helpful annotations as well here on the side on how to think your way into the solo rules. I like that too. And some more tables. So basically a solo engine to work with the rest of the context of the game as lined out in the player's manual and within the setting as lined out in the referee's manual. It seems like we have a lot of content here. Let's see what we have. Yeah, we have a more detailed list of encounters here. The whole setting overview in the two more detailed settings, so Poland, Sweden. The factions and forces outlined, so specific NATO and Warsaw Pact forces, presumably. Scenario sites, looking very interesting already. Yeah, there's a lot of meat on this bone, I would say. Like, I would anticipate this to be a very different solo experience from playing something like Ironsworn that is more a narration engine. This also has a lot of, well, what I call maybe crunch to it, a little more at least, you know, where you do have to engage with a deeper level of systems that are part of the fun, where Ironsworn or similar narrative games seem to want to not get in your way and just resolve everything as much as possible. The systems here also, not that they want to get in the way, but they take more of a center stage in actually having you engage with these tokens and maps and potentially lending themselves to miniatures and things like that. So there's a lot more systems to work with and take into account and build a narration out of. I mean, stylistically and in terms of just, you know, especially for this edition, the packaging and everything, they have definitely hit the nail on the head. And there's a lot of content to play with by the looks of it. And presumably also, considering there are still other regions that would make sense to narrate, like the in-between, Germany, Denmark. I wouldn't be surprised if they expand on this and give us some more different kinds of maps to play with. But I'm very happy with it. It's looking good, looking promising. I'm gonna have a read through and decide whether I want to do something with it. Maybe record something with it. We'll see. It'd definitely be intriguing to do this in a space that I've actually been to, that I actually am familiar with and can sort of bring my own personal story in. So maybe if there is some material for, let's say, the west of Germany or an area of the east that I've actually been to and can narrate more easily, that could be something I want to do. We'll see. But for now, very happy with this. If it caught your interest, I'm not sure you can get a hold of this particular edition, but there is a box set out there that you can get through the publisher or through Free League. So thanks for your interest, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.